Hello, Justin. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to start off by talking about your business dialogue, so people can kind of get an idea of what you do. So, from my understanding, you have video meetings each month with clients that you convert into short form videos.
Mhm.
So, what specifically got you interested in running your own business and nonetheless a short form video marketing agency?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I got into marketing like on my own business 6 years ago. I was doing websites and logos, and I was always told to look for a scalable service. And in the fall of 22, I was doing a design project for a client. It was an agency, and they said, "Hey, we've got this client out in LA. He's actually the number one broker in LA. And we think he'd be really good to do videos." And so I said, sure. And they didn't want to do anything on site because it was too expensive to do the 2 days of shooting and the flying out there. So we just come across Riverside as a platform for high quality video and audio recording remotely. And so we used his webcam, interviewed him for 30 minutes. He was terrible on camera. He did poorly. He didn't look at the camera at all. He was just very uncomfortable. But we still did it, still got it done, edited. And even though these videos were terrible in terms of like the content was fine, like he was talking about stuff that's like, okay, fine, but his screen presence was bad. He would, before this, they would do these videos where like, here's this home for sale, and get maybe 100 views on their Instagram profile. Well, after he started posting, he was getting 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 views. And on these terrible looking videos. And it got me thinking like, wow, people want to hear from him as the founder of this brokerage. Um, Even though they can find the same information on Instagram or on the website, like it's the same exact information, but it comes from him and it's terribly presented and it's still getting all these views. So it got me realizing like there's an opportunity here. I bet he's not the only one who doesn't have the time or knowledge into just capturing this information from straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I wonder if there's other people like this, and that's where the my business really got solidified, was going in that direction of creating short form video content for busy founders and CEOs.
Okay, that makes sense. So, on that kind of, what would you say is your biggest, like, what is the biggest thing that they struggle with as
It's
a
time.
founder or entrepreneur? It's
It's
time.
time.
Okay.
Well, I mean, beyond so there's two things, right? So the first is, well, they want to grow their impact. They want to gain leads. They want to gain qualified leads. They feel a guilt of not posting online regularly, so they don't, and then they're like guilty, and so maybe a ghostwriting agency. So, but beyond all that, like, okay, that's all action. But what if they don't have time for any of the action? Well, it's time. To get to all this, you need to do time because no one's going to do it for you unless you hire a ghostwriting agency, which I guess is a shortcut. So we're kind of like a ghostwriting agency, but when it comes to video, because it just takes an hour a month.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And I know editing a video in specific takes a long time. Like, it's not, especially if you want to do one of the, like, heavily processed ones that seem to do really well on, like, Instagram Reels or YouTube
Yeah.
Shorts. Like, the really heavily processed stuff, you really need to take the time to do.
Yep.
And I could definitely see how that's really useful for you because then you can do all of the back end. It's almost full service.
It
Whereas
is.
like the client is just sitting here like, I have no idea what's going on. Just like do it for me, go ham
Yep.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
It's completely full. It's unbelievably stupid, simple, full service. Like there are other people out there who do what we do. Some well-known names, especially on LinkedIn, who one call, full month of videos. Like we can say the same thing, but none of them, as far as I know, go as far as to also write the posts that go with the video and publish the video and then do performance reporting because we really want our clients like. And I discovered it doesn't work that way really well because when I was started this, so that was the fall of 22, that story I shared. But in the spring of 23, started getting some new clients in the door. Like, hey, can we, I was charging $400, $500 a pop to do these video sessions, and I'd give them the videos back, and 9 out of 10 clients would never use the videos because they struggled with the time to post it. And there was probably some like, self-doubt too. Like, I don't know if I really want to say this, that kind of stuff. But really it was all about a time thing. Like they still have to go on the platform, make the time. It's probably a new habit if they're not in the habit of doing it. And then write the post. What do I write? And then they got to publish it and they got to wait for it to upload because you got to wait for it to upload. Like that's the thing people forget. Like who loves waiting for something to upload? So that's when I realized it was the spring of 23. Like, we got to change. If we really want to help our clients, we got to move to a model where we're doing everything for them. And so that's what we do today.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I kind of wanted to get back to the scheduling thing because a lot
Yeah.
of comes with like I know for me, I definitely struggle. I try to post every day, but I'm not super great about it. And I could definitely see how that's a big time suck. Do you do any, I know there's scheduling applications out there for certain social
Yeah,
media platforms. Do you,
yeah,
like,
we
what
do.
do you do about that? Okay.
Yeah, so we use Loomly. It's like a Hootsuite competitor. These are a dime a dozen
Okay.
now. I've heard people use Poobler. I don't even know how you say that. There's all of these. Again, they're a dime a dozen. Pick your flavor. We settled on Loomly. I forget why exactly, but they've got everything you want. The only thing they don't have, I've discovered, is they don't do personal LinkedIn analytics. So if anybody knows of a tool that allows you to do personal, you can post all you want, publish, schedule, write, whatever. It just won't show you the LinkedIn. It'll do it for a page, just not for personal. So if anybody knows,
Okay.
let me know. I'd love to know of a tool that does that allows you to schedule and look at the stats for individual accounts.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah, I agree on that. On the analytics as well. So I know for websites, one of the things that we do is we create like so we do essentially called what's SEO or SEO audits. And what you do is it's just a PDF with all of the information on
Yeah.
how your website's ranking and everything. What key metrics are really important for like any sort of social media? Like, is there any
Yeah.
specific ones for platforms?
Well, for us, per platform, I don't know. Every platform is nuanced, but at the end of the day, you want engagement, you want view time. Those are the leading indicators, right, of success. View time is how long people are watching your videos. I know on LinkedIn, and I'm 80%, 90% a LinkedIn guy. I post on all the other platforms because hey, I've got this video. Why not also publish it to the other platforms? But at the end of the day, I'm really a LinkedIn guy. And I know LinkedIn, for example, tells you how long the average view time is on your videos. So total view time is important. It's why, by the fun fact, why it's important to do shorter videos because LinkedIn doesn't care about the length of time viewed. It cares about the percent of the video
Mhm.
viewed because that it tells the algorithm this was quality content, right? If somebody finishes something, that's what they're measuring. It's like, oh, they finished it, it must be good. But if they only watch 30 seconds and there's 5 minutes to go, it's not so good. So you get less reach. That's a fun fact there. But we care about total view time, percent view time, and then we care about engagement rates. And there's different kinds of engagement. Like I think a lot of people talk about engagement and kind of like this big bucket. But if you think about it, like a like is a super cheap type of engagement. Anyone can go watch 2 seconds, like, move on, swipe, like, that's super cheap. Then you look at, and I'm talking about LinkedIn here, and other platforms are similar depending on the kinds of engagement they offer. Then you've got comments. Somebody took time to think about it and actually either write like "good job" or actually write something that's their own version of what you're saying. Like they're adding the conversation. That's the next level up. Then you've got shares of the post. That's a very rare treat on especially LinkedIn. Not so much in other platforms like TikTok that really is about silly stuff, and we love sharing silly stuff. But like on a serious platform, LinkedIn, it's really tough to get a share. There's actually people that put it as a call to action at the end of their post. Like if this was important to you, this is helpful to you, share it. Like that's how important it is for the algorithm. And then above that, even are saved posts. And you don't see if anybody saves a post, but the algorithm definitely sees that because it's a tracked metric. So there's different levels of engagement that we care about. Like likes cheap, saves are expensive, so to speak. And then view total percent view time, that's leading. That's what we can early track. But then on the lagging indicator is like when people show up to calls and they're saying things like, I feel like I already know you. Like at the end of the day, that's what I care about most for my clients because what that does is that tells you that your clients are bought into your philosophies. And there's no better client than a client or prospect than one who shows up like already knowing what you're about, like just let's work, let's get to work. Like they're very close to making that decision. It's now a money decision less than anything. So those are the two things I really care about: engagement, what kind of engagement, and then if people are saying I feel like I already know you and things like that during the sales call.
That's definitely one of those things that's really nice about social media is because they almost pre-vet you before you hop on that call. Like they don't have to vet you almost at all. They look
That's
up your
right.
social media, they know you, they know what you're talking about, and especially if you're giving them free value, that's a really big thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure with the way you do everything, like you seem to have how do I phrase it? Like a very personable,
Mm.
like I can relate to you. That's like your brand kind of thing of like I'm one of you guys. And that's I'm sure that's very comforting for a lot of people as
Yeah,
well when they hop on.
absolutely. Yeah, people tell me that all the time, and that's a huge thing. Yeah, they tell me, and I was on a call today. It wasn't a, but it was a networking call. She hadn't seen anime content, but she's like, oh, I feel like I just really can really enjoy just talking to you. Yeah, yeah, I get stuff like that all the time. I appreciate that. Thank you for the feedback.
Absolutely. I think the one that really did it for me was the stuffed animals. every time. Just the stuffed
Yes.
animals do it, hands down.
I got more. I got more coming. I got plans for those. I got puppets. I got puppets and stuffed animals galore coming through because I think no one else is doing that on LinkedIn. Why not do something different?
Beautiful. Yeah, it definitely stands out for sure because LinkedIn is so serious. Like
Hmm.
everything that I scroll past, it's like the economy's doing this, and then I'll get like stuffed animals, and you're like, this is interesting.
I love it. Yeah, yeah. You're gonna see more. I'm excited. Those are my boy's stuffed animals. I pulled it right off of his bed to get that to happen. He's had those for 10 years. I'm
Love
like,
it.
why am I not using this as a prop? So started doing that.
I love it. That's perfect. That's perfect. Question number two that I had for you was discipline is something that is critical, especially with content. So
Yeah.
on the show Moments with Fu, you discussed ways to stick to a content strategy with discipline.
Yes.
However, a lot of people don't really have that muscle built up for them that allows them to stick to a super rigid content routine.
Correct.
What did you do and what would you advise others to do when it comes to building that muscle?
Yeah, you're touching on human psychology now. Like, and really, your question is, how does anyone build a new habit, a new good habit?
Right.
Right. That's really what you're asking. Would you say? And it's like going to the gym, right? Like, who likes to go to the gym? Nobody likes to go to. Even when you've gone for a while, it can be tough, especially if you take a break and you try doing it again. Like I took a break from doing videos on a regular basis because I had such a backlog my editor was giving me. I was like, oh, I guess I don't have to shoot any videos. I took like a month, 2 months off. I started doing it again last fall. I was like, oh, I'm terrible. Like this sucks again. So when you take a break from things and it's tough. Uh, So one way, there's a couple different ideas here. Like the first thing comes to mind is like, don't make it so hard on yourself. Like if you've ever gone to the gym on your own, it sucks. But if you go with a friend, a lot easier. So why not do content the same way? Like there's a couple ideas here for like if you don't want to do video, fine. But what if you just book a time together? Hey, let's do some co-working time. Let's get on the phone and we'll work together. This is a thing, especially millennials and younger, really tapping into the power of just like showing up to the same place virtually or on your phone or even in person. Let's just get some work done together. And it's really powerful. Why do you think it's different? Like I use a co-working space. I don't know what it is, but you go to a co-working space, I just feel more productive when I'm there. Maybe it's because I'm outside my normal element, but that's one way. But if you want to do video, which can be really 5, 10 times more work than other types of content, why not get on a call together, ask each other prepared questions, kind of like a podcast, record it, and then boom, you've got your video content. Obviously, you got to edit it and stuff like that, but you can use tools like Opus Pro or a cheap editor from Bangladesh to get that done if you don't want to do it yourself. Um, and that's an easier way to get around that, kind of like using have the buddy system is what I call it for content.
That's really smart. Yeah, that's honestly that's almost exactly what I'm doing with the podcast. Like
Yeah,
almost to a T. Because it's nice to have someone else there that you can kind of bounce ideas off.
yeah,
I
so
also
much more
wanted
fun.
to yeah, it is. The other thing that I kind of wanted to like branch on is kind of underlying you're talking about like friction here. Like there's a certain friction to do anything. Like going to the gym, it's driving, it's getting your gym clothes on, it's showering after, right? You have all those tasks associated with it.
Mm.
And kind of what you're doing is when you're going to the gym and you're going to be by yourself, maybe you're just listening to music, being alone in and itself is a friction. And so if you add someone else there, you're reducing the friction there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, you're
so,
also increasing the stakes. I think that's what you're
right.
doing. Like the friction can still be there at the same level,
Mhm.
but because you're increasing the stakes, not just the reward is down here, right? Friction up here, reward, and it's like, and this is on your own. But then you add on top of that, you add stakes. Well, what happens if I don't show up? Right? So humans are more motivated by negative things than we are positive things. So if you tell somebody, I'll give you $1 for a task, you'll get a certain amount of response, right? Maybe 30, 50% will do. But if you tell them, I'll take $1 of yours for not doing the task, you bet that 80 to 90% of
Yeah.
those people are going to do that task. It's weird. I forget the name for that bias. So that's why, when you say I'm going with a friend, what are you really essentially saying is if I fail my friend at showing up, I'm going to look like an idiot. I don't want to do that. So you add not just reward, I feel good after working out, but you add the stakes, and that total reward a little bit and reward and stakes overcomes the friction.
Yeah. I know that was something that James Clear was talking about in Atomic Habits.
Mm.
That's kind of that model there of like where do you balance it? You have to kind of find a spot where the reward and the stakes here in this case outweigh the risk.
Hmm.
or like the downside. I don't remember the exact terminology. It's been a
A
hot minute
similar
since I
similar
read the
model.
book.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely a really interesting thing. I recommend like reading it if you haven't.
I've heard it mentioned. I love books on psychology,
So
so
good.
you don't have to twist my arm to read that book.
It's so good. I follow him on LinkedIn, and 9 times out of 10, he posts something that's really good. And it's
Yeah,
every single time. It's text. There's no audio. There's no
yeah,
video.
yeah.
Nothing. It's just text. He's a great writer.
Cool.
On that, Justin, you studied in France during 2007 at a
Yes.
university that I am not even going to attempt to pronounce. How would you say that?
Université de Pau et des Pays de la Dour.
Okay. So, being that you studied abroad and learned a different language, what is the biggest lesson someone can learn from being in another country?
Perspective. Any
Perspective?
language will teach you that. If you learn a different language, you learn a different perspective. Literally, in just the act of putting a sentence together can be completely opposite how you would put a sentence together in English. You know, you put the verb here, put the adjective here. Well, in the other language, you put the ad. Why did they do that? Well, because they see that, or there's masculine nouns, there's feminine nouns. We don't have that in English. Why is that? And it causes you to think, there's different ways of looking at things. And traveling abroad does that even better, and that's good. I think it's healthy to have our perspectives challenged and open, and that's why it's so important to really put yourself. And that's a big picture. That's why it's good to go outside your comfort zone. Honestly, it's like it's going to help you. Honestly, to see things from a different perspective and grow as a human being. It has for me.
What was the biggest, like, cultural perspective change, if you will, from being in France for you?
Well, okay, to be fair, I actually grew up in France. First 12 years of my life. And
Oh,
you won't
I
see
didn't know
this on
that.
my
Okay.
LinkedIn. You won't see that's why you don't know. But I went back to study abroad in 2007. So what I
Okay.
just talked about is still true either way. So going back for me was interesting because I went back as a young adult. So I left when I was 13 years old. I went back when I was like 20-ish, 19. And it was interesting because you kind of see that people are all the same. Like I was like expecting things to be different, but they weren't. I was like, oh, people are still, people are still people. There was no, sometimes when you leave a certain context, you think it'll be a certain way when you come back, and it's not. It's the same, for good or for bad. So it was good to experience it a second time.
What was the like? What were the biggest like changes then between what do you think? Actually, I'm gonna rephrase this a little bit differently. What are the biggest differences between like how you're raising your kids here in the US and you
Mm,
being raised in France then? Because I'm sure
yeah.
that just having different cultures, it's way
Oh
different.
yeah. Oh yeah. The first thing I'll say is like school over there is like hardcore. I went into ninth grade in the United States as an American student. I Up until that point, I'd been a French student. Um, the burden of work is 10% in the United States as a student what it is in France. Like I'm not kidding you when I say that I was stressed going to school every day in France. I didn't realize I didn't call it stress then, but I didn't even know. Like I had just that pit in my stomach. You know how some people say they have a pit in their stomach every day before going to work? I had that every Sunday. Lost my appetite. I was always
Mm.
wondered like why didn't I ever have an appetite Sunday nights? Oh, it's because I was stressed. Again, I didn't know what it was. So the burden of work is just unbelievable. I have ADHD. So when you have ADHD and you combine that with a high workload and lots of studying and a lot of things to remember and tons of notes, it is very stressful. So you get like an amazing education as a result, just like going to a boarding school or private school, right? But everybody's going through it, and teachers are pretty hardcore. I remember one of my classmates. I was like in fifth grade. What was I? Fourth grade or fifth grade? And one classmate who kept getting in trouble. This is an elementary school. Teacher finally had it, and he picked him up by his ears and picked him up out of his chair, and like that was par for the course. Like that was my experience. I'm sure not all France was like that. I was in a rural school when I was in elementary school, but you could still get away with that in the 90s in France. I don't think anyone could do that in the United States in the 90s, like pick anyone up by their ears. School was hard. My kids are in a private school now, and I'm thankful for that. But it's a good for them. It's not pushing them over their limits. It's pushing them to their limits.
Okay, okay. I'm sure that was one of those things that I guess helped you later on in life because you were almost conditioned
Oh
to
yeah.
that stress load as well.
Oh yeah.
Would
Yep.
you say that the I guess we'll go back to the ultimate management. Would you say that the risk was higher than the reward, or would you like where
Mm.
would you balance that?
I'm thankful for what happened. I wouldn't want to put my kids through it though.
Okay,
I'm thankful that I
fair
went.
enough.
It's like any hard thing, like right. I'm thankful it shaped me, but I wouldn't want my kids to go through it.
What was the like in the night? What was the French system like for schooling? Like, what was your schedule?
We started at 8. Some days you end at 5. Well, I'm talking middle school now. There
Sure.
was like Wednesday afternoons off. I don't know if all France was like this, but I remember having Wednesday afternoons off. But all the other days, you'd be in class from 8 or 9 until 5, like an actual job, and you get an hour for lunch. And I will say the school lunches in France, the best lunch you'll ever have in your life. Like, and this is a school lunch because the French value food, and so if they value food, they give you good food and they make good food in good ways. So but yeah, I remember that. I remember the lunches being a highlight of my day, and you got an hour for it.
I know one of the exchange students was saying that the school lunches in she's from Switzerland were significantly better than the US. So I'm sure it's not
Yeah,
like a super super high bar there.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So question number 4 that I had for you was you worked at the Hope Gospel Mission for 5 years.
Hmm.
So the Hope Gospel's mission was to provide aid or hope to those who have struggled with, I believe it was addiction,
Hmm.
homelessness, or abuse.
Yes.
So, what did you learn from being their marketing
Mm.
coordinator? Like, what seems to, like, what drives that
Yeah.
organization, if you will?
Yeah, well, what I learned there was that you really have to. So that was my first real job, desk job. I was working at like a distribution center before that, moving boxes, and before that at McDonald's and Taco Bell, all sorts of like, random manual jobs. And this was the first time I sat down and I was using my brain to work. And I realized in that role, and I was there 1 month shy of 6 years, that you really have to advocate for what you want in a role. I actually started as the volunteer coordinator and I did a little bit of marketing. And I knew I wanted to do more marketing and less volunteer coordinating. So I advocated, and within a year and a half, 2 years, I was, basically the marketing coordinator. That title you see in my job description on LinkedIn is not the job description, my title I had at Hope. It's the one I gave myself because they called me stewardship assistant. Well, what's a stewardship assistant? Well, basically, I was a marketing coordinator. So I just gave myself my own job title because it's way more clear. So I just recommend, if you're early in your career and you're trying to you've got big dreams, like it's okay to advocate for yourself and ask for the things you need, ask for the raise, ask for the role that you want. And if you're working for an employer that actually that has people that care for you, like my Hope Gospel Mission did, they will give you that, and they'll slowly let you grow into more and more responsibility. By the time I left there, I was managing all their fundraising events, I was the event coordinator. I was in charge of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of income for the mission because I was writing all of their sales letters. They wrote multiple sales letters. These are like donation letters. If you're getting that in the mail, maybe Gen Z audience isn't familiar with this, but yes, you can get letters in the mail asking for money. I was in charge of writing those, and I was generating thousands and thousands of dollars from writing. So that's actually where I cut my teeth on marketing. I went into it with a graphic design. I graduated with a graphic design degree, but I came out of that experience with like writing experience. I created their whole email program from scratch. I was managing multiple thousand, 5 6 figure events for them, fundraising events, store signage. I was doing everything, and that's really what got me to start to see myself more as a marketer and less of as a graphic designer. See, graphic design is a subset of marketing, and really get it's a key part of what got me to where I am today.
What would you say? Because it sounds like you were doing like the, I guess, mail, like
Yeah,
physical mail, email. And so would you say you learned a lot of copywriting in that job? Like, was that kind of your
100%.
primary thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Like you have to write well if you're going to get a donation from a $10 donation from a little old lady on fixed Social Security income. Like you have to write. You're not trying to squeeze it out of her. By no means was that ever my heart or ever our mission's intent. But those, if you're going to write a letter and you're trying to explain in plain terms, this is what's happening here at Hope Gospel Mission. I know you can't see it with your eyes. Let me unpack it for you in this letter. I had to get good at writing with empathy, writing with clarity, writing with story. Like this is a story. I learned that if you had a good story from somebody that was going through the program, like it made a world of difference in terms of the response rates you got back. And we would track all that. We would track all the percent, just like digital marketers do today. We were tracking, okay, we sent 1,000 pieces of mail. What was our response rate? It was 5.6%. Well, that's the best one yet. What did we do for different? Well, we were told a couple good stories and we had a clear call to action and all that kind of jazz. So I learned how to write from that experience.
what would you say are, let's just say, your three biggest tips for copywriting with
Yeah,
that?
that's a great question. Three the biggest tips. Number one is write like you talk. If you're gonna say it like I'm saying the sentence, write it that way. And so maybe you need to dictate. I did this actually shockingly. I get away from doing that. I have a style of writing sometimes I realize breaks that rule. And I realized it recently last week. I actually wrote an audio note for myself, and I went back to use it as a post for LinkedIn. I realized, why am I editing this so much? Why can't I just use it as is, this rule number one, like write as you speak. So I did. I left most of it, and it was a really refreshing way to write. It's like, wow, I haven't written like this in a while. So it's a really good way for people to get to know you. Nobody cares about grammar school. This is about like the real you. A second tip is write with stories and anecdotes. Super powerful. Like AI can fill rule number one, but AI doesn't have anecdotes because it's a freaking machine. It doesn't have stories. You have stories. Well, what if you say, well, if I don't have stories? Well, then you need to get that experience. Well, how do I get that experience? Well, you need to do your work for free or low cost to get that first story. And then you build on that and you get your second sale from that first one. And then you get stories. The goal is when you write, use stories. And if you don't have sales stories, maybe you talk about your own personal experience and why this is important to you. Talk about your vision, your mission, people you've helped, and why you're qualified to solve this problem for people. So tell stories. The third tip I'd have is like make time to think. Like good writing comes from good thinking. I think Eddie Schlaner said this. I learned it from Eddie Schlaner on LinkedIn. If you don't follow him, follow him. He's a great copywriter, the best in my opinion. But I don't know if he came up with this or he just follows many great people and he just passed on this information. But writing is thinking. And if you're not thinking, then you're not going to be a good writer. So how do you think? Well, you make time to think. For me, that's in the morning. I have my devotions. I read my Bible and I pray, but I also just think. I think about like, how do I feel about my life? And I think about what do I think about my work? And that's often when I have really good ideas. It's kind of weird, but I tend to do my best thinking when I'm live on calls like this. Like I come up with models, I come up with thoughts that I'm like, oh, that's something I've been thinking about, but I didn't realize it. And so this was the opportunity for me to actually say it out loud, and then I write it. And so during our whole call, I'm writing things down because I'm like, I got to talk about that later. A lot of people have shower thoughts. Well, shower thought is your brain has a quick second to actually do some thinking because you don't have anything to do other than shower.
Exactly.
So if you like shower thoughts, guess what? That can happen more often than just taking a shower if you give yourself time to like go on walks or do nothing and just be able to think. For me, that's Thursdays. Like I spend my whole Thursday morning just thinking and I'm writing and thinking, writing. So and at the end of the day, I guess that's number 4 is like put in your reps, do more writing. But I would argue you got to be a good thinker to be a good writer. Like just spend some time thinking.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Do you know what binaural beats are? Have you heard of
Yeah,
those?
binaural beats. I go counseling.
Yeah.
I love my counselor, and she taught me about that. And you put the headphones on, and it gets
Yep.
the sound to go through one ear, and then it's not distracting. And yeah, tell me about that. How do you use that?
So I actually use it a lot of times when I'm doing two things, trying to focus or like on whether it's reading, whether it's like just trying to do work, working on a website, something, I'll put those in and I don't know why, that I can just dial in. Like
That's cool.
I don't know any of the research behind it. I just know
Yep,
that it works.
yep, it does.
Or the other one is if I'm just sitting there. Like if there's
Mm,
background noise or something and I just want to sit there, like just think, pop them in. And it drowns out the
mm,
noise 9 times out of 10. And then it's almost like a clearer head. It's
mm.
really weird. I like, what do you know about them? I
I've
guess.
done it in counseling. So when you get counseling, certain kinds of counseling, I was doing brain spotting, for example, which I highly recommend. I can talk about brain spotting all day, mental health. Anyways, she would put those on me. She'd say, put these on, and it was very helpful for staying focused on unpleasant things. Because when you're doing counseling, you're processing things that are just not okay in your life. So it was really helpful for remaining focused on that, even for someone like me with ADHD. Who's just very distracted. So it was very helpful for that. It's funny. I'm glad you reminded me because I did have them also for work stuff, and I completely forgot about using them. Appreciate the reminder. I'm gonna pop those in later today. I got to run some numbers, which is like my least favorite task of the week, and I'll probably pop those on to get that done in lickety split time.
Yeah, I love it. Honestly, it's almost completely changed my routine because I used to
Mm,
put on like I'm a metal listener, so it's very like stimulating.
hmm.
And so it distracts me from my work. But when I put those in, my productivity probably doubles. Like
Yeah,
I can
I
edit
believe it.
a video in like 15 minutes with that.
Wow.
versus
Yep.
like a half hour otherwise. It's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely wild.
It's a good one. Thanks for the reminder. I'm gonna pop those in again.
The fifth question I had for you is being someone who uses Instagram a fair bit still, I'm shocked that you post on the platform significantly less.
Hmm.
So at one point you seemed to be more consistent, but now it seems you're focused on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And your LinkedIn actually has more followers than your Instagram now.
Oh yeah, 100%. I got 6,000 followers on LinkedIn, like 100-ish. I don't even know
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yeah, I want to say it was like 200 when I checked or something like that.
Yeah.
Why would you use LinkedIn more than Instagram?
It all has to do with buyer intent. Like, think about the platform. When you're on Instagram, you're on there for fun. You're on there for pictures. You're on there for dogs. You're on there for blah, whatever, right? Good stuff, but fun stuff. Like, I'm getting married. Let me go look at all these people, all these inspiration, kind of like Pinterest kind of a deal. When you're on LinkedIn, like LinkedIn is a work platform. A lot of people think, oh, it's just for resumes, but it's actually a lot more than that. But anyways, that being said, those are all in the work realm of your brain. Well, nobody wants to go on LinkedIn. We go to LinkedIn to learn or to get opportunities. So when you're on there and you're in that learning mindset, which is what anybody who's on LinkedIn is doing, like I need to absorb information, I need to get this to move ahead in my career or to win something in my business or to learn something that'll help me in my business. Don't know what it is, so I'll just scroll in the feed. Like your mindset is more in the learn. I'm here to learn about something for business versus on LinkedIn. You're like, yeah, I have a business. Same person, right? Let's talk about me. Like, if I'm on Instagram, I'm there to just have fun. And maybe I'll come across an offer like, hey, triple your sales for, check our training, $5. Oh, okay. Maybe I'll check that out. But on LinkedIn, like every single post is about how I can improve my business. So it has to do with buyer intent. People on LinkedIn are way more interested in B2B services than those on Instagram. Not to say no one is. It's just they're more condensed on LinkedIn. And I'm a B2B service. That's why I show up there.
Yeah. Do you change it for different clients? Like which one you're posting on primarily?
Yeah, so if we had all of our clients are on LinkedIn primarily because they're all B2B services. Like if you want to be a thought leader, 9 times out of 10, I'm just throwing a random number out there, but odds are you're going to be a B2B service, a professional service like an executive coach. You wrote a book and you're trying to get people to read that. I could see thought leaders being like product, like there are. And even as I say this, I'm thinking of like a couple, like people that created this brand of products. They're also thought leaders, but most thought leaders are in the service space. So it makes sense for them, all of our clients, to be on LinkedIn first. We have one that's also on YouTube and other one that's going to be on Instagram. We're onboarding her now. So yes, they're going to be on other platforms, but we primarily care about Instagram, primarily care about LinkedIn.
Fair enough. What would you say? So if you're really, really big on LinkedIn, what are your thoughts on, like you say you kind of try to post everywhere. What if you took everything on LinkedIn and just threw it on every platform, sort of like just a wall and just throwing paint at it and something will
Yeah,
stick?
it's funny you say that. So I haven't been very good about that lately because I've had some staff turnover. We had some people trying different things, trialing different people, and now that we got somebody locked in, like I think June after this, and this interview is in May. In June, you're going to start seeing 2 posts a week on every single platform known to man, other than Threads, because Threads doesn't have an API. But we're gonna upload it to Loomly, and it's connected. I've connected it to X. I've connected it to obviously LinkedIn, everything other. But like it's gonna go out, so I'll be more consistent then. It just has to do with I only have so much capacity, so I haven't been doing it. But now I got somebody to do it for me. She's gonna take my posts on LinkedIn, my videos, and re-upload them to the other platforms with customizations as needed, different hashtags, and that's what we do for our clients. We're just finally doing it for me now.
Smart, smart. I have a kind of a weird thought on that. What are your thoughts on TikTok and the whole TikTok ban?
I,
What are your
I
thoughts
never
on
was
that?
worried about it. And even now I'm like, oh, I guess I'm more worried than I was before. But even now I'm like, TikTok doesn't influence my business. Like I'm on there. I've got 100-ish. I don't even think I have 100 yet. Um, Folks, I've got a couple videos that got kind of big, but it doesn't impact my business. It's like all these other platforms like Instagram and YouTube where it's really a discovery platform and it's for fun. 80% of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can't do business on these platforms. People absolutely do, and you should be on these platforms. But for me, it's like, if I can post a video on LinkedIn and it gets, maybe 200, 400 views, but it's like 20% founders versus I post a video to TikTok and it gets 2,000 views, but like 5 people who watched it were founders, it just makes sense for me to stay on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that. The TikTok is really weird too because it seems like the younger you are, the more likely you are to use it.
Yeah.
So you're almost pre-selecting for people who don't even have jobs yet.
Yeah.
So
Good
if
point.
you're like a toy manufacturer, perfect, go on there.
Yeah.
Or like you're selling like clothes or something.
Yeah.
But B2B is just I'm not entirely confident on that one.
No, no, definitely not. No, products great. Like if you're B2C, go to the Instagrams and TikToks of the world. If you're B2B, you got to be on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean you do it's all in on one. You should be everywhere. Like Gary Vaynerchuk will tell you that. Alex Hormozy will tell you that. Like Alex Hormozy spends $80,000 a month in creating content for every freaking platform known to man. And so that's because he knows it works. So if he knows it works, why not also do it? The key is like do it sustainably. Like, and that's what we offer our clients. Like we can do all those platforms. That's the model we do. You don't have to be a pro in each platform. We'll take care of it for you.
Yeah, Alex Hormozy also has a really weird model there that seems to work really well because he's acquisition, I believe, is private equity. And
Mm-hmm.
so what he's essentially doing there, if and just yell at me if I get it wrong, but essentially what he's trying to do is he's trying to find all of the founders and everyone possibly who has a business.
Yeah.
And then if you need funding, you already think of him because he's in private
Correct.
equity and he's giving you all of the business advice you could ever want.
Yep. He's pre-qualifying all of his listeners into being, and he
Mhm.
said this. I've listened to his podcast. He said that. He's like, I want people listening to this to know that I want them to be successful. When you hit this level of business, I forget what it is, 5 million total revenue a year. I want you to come to me and pitch me, and I want to be able to have a chance to work with you. Like that's his goal, and he makes that very clear. And I love that he makes that clear. That theoretically, that's the goal of every person who's doing content. And everybody knows this, but that is really your goal when you do content marketing is to pre-qualify people into being great customers. Either you educate them about something they didn't know so they can become a great customer of yours, or you get them interested in your methodologies of doing things, even though there are many other competitors, because you're the one talking about it the way you're talking about it and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I know that's the thing he does with his books because his books are what, like $5, I want to say.
Yeah, I
Like
think
they're
he's
dirt
selling his
cheap.
first book sold for $1 for the
Yeah.
longest time. That was what made it really famous.
That's the thing that I find really, really funny about his books is they like he said this before, is they all emulate exactly what they're trying to do. So what was it, his marketing 101 book? I forget the title of it, but he used all the forms of marketing that he showcased in the book
Mm.
to market that book. And for the sale product book, the basically products 101, he sold it for $1. Like it's you can't resist $1 book.
Mm-mm.
Who's gonna say no to free information essentially?
Right. Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and it's a good model to use. And by the way, it's called a tripwire offer. When you have a low value offer that just gets people in the door, bought into your, like, and usually it's tied to an email. He wasn't even doing that. He was just doing it for pure awareness, which kudos to him for having the budget for that.
Yeah, that's also Costco's model, right? With their hot dogs, if I remember correctly.
It's similar. Yeah, I don't know. That's at the end of your, yeah, because if you get somebody to buy at the low level, yeah, I don't know. It's similar but different because it's cheap. It's $1 hot dog. I think they probably lose money on it, but the goal is that they get you to in the store so you spend more, or they get you to spend more on food. And that's the idea of any loss leader. A loss leader is typically an offer you make in order to get people to spend more, or become the leader. That's technically, I think it's a lot. You get a short-term loss to become the long-term leader in your industry. I think Alex Hormozy did that with his book.
Absolutely. I wanted to jump to our last question, which was being that TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and almost every other social media has come up with a version of scrolling short form video style popularized by TikTok. It
Yeah.
was only time that LinkedIn did so. Yay! LinkedIn
Yeah.
finally introduced the beta of their videos for the mobile app. How is this new feature going to change LinkedIn? And what are you going to do to capitalize on it?
Well, I'm not going to do anything special, but I can tell you right now, I don't have access to the beta. I know there's people who do video as well as me who don't have access to the beta, which I think is hilarious. Do you have access?
I do.
Oh, how did you get access and I didn't? That's hilarious, dude. All right, well,
I have no idea why.
it's
I got
random.
access to it, and then I was like, you know what? It's basically I'll just start posting my TikToks here.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. You took the words out of my mouth. People are going to become aware. Like once you put something in front, like out of sight, out of mind, right? But as soon as you put something in front of somebody, it's like, oh, I should be doing this too. I can't tell you how many business leaders I spoke to in the last year because I'm doing some market research with executive coaches over the course of last summer about like, hey, because I was investigating whether there was a niche to get into. And I discovered the executive coaches who did not value short form video were the ones who had no idea it was a thing. Are you in TikTok? No. Are you on LinkedIn? No. Are you on Instagram? No. Are you on YouTube? No. Do you know about short form video? No. Do you want to do video? No. The ones who did want to do video were the ones who actually saw other people doing video because they're on those platforms. So I think it'll do that for the platform. It'll create demand for video because people will be like, oh yeah, now I actually have to do it, and cause new business for agencies like mine.
I definitely think with the beta, it's addicting. Like I almost don't go to the feed anymore.
Hmm.
So I wonder how much of the like the text, like I guess meta, for lack of a better word, on LinkedIn is really gonna die out.
That's a really good
Because
question.
with the beta, the captions are also relatively like they're there, but they're also a pain. Like they're a very small button in the bottom. So I wonder if
Yeah,
that's
it's
gonna
like the
change as
TikTok
well.
experience. Or no, what's the one
Mhm.
Instagram? What's the one that you've got to read or I think it's Facebook. The captions are like overlaid on top of the video. And it's tough to read or something like that. I've seen. I know what
I,
you're talking about.
yeah, I think that's Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is gonna just completely shift because
I wonder. I wouldn't be
that'll be really
surprised.
fun.
We have a lot of folks Gen X and above who are on LinkedIn, and that's the audience that reads and does the regular platform. So if it shifts, I could see where it could shift, but it would take another 10, 20 years. As the younger, as Gen Z gets older and then Alpha starts entering the workforce, that's in 10 years. I could see that becoming like the main feed dying out, just kind of like how Facebook, the main feed, is now just occupied by, our grandparents basically took over all of Facebook and family photos. I think it's the same thing with LinkedIn, but I think it'll take a while. I mean, old habits die hard.
Yeah. I know it definitely with like all the college students that I know and myself, like we all have the attention span of a goldfish. So like scrolling on LinkedIn is going to be so much better for the
Yeah,
posts.
it's funny you say that, and I get it right about that. Can you get me the transcript, by the way, when we're done? Because there's a lot of things I'm not right. I'm like, I need to talk about that. Um,
Absolutely.
Thank you. The attention span of goldfish. I got something to say about that because a lot of people have heard that and said that, and I can see that. Like I get it. Like I have less attention span, but I don't think it means anything bad about human beings. What it means is
Yeah.
that we have higher standards of content that we care about. Why? Because there's so freaking much content. So if there's so much content, I should have the attention span of a goldfish because I don't want to look at all this crap. I want to find the crap that's most useful to me. And at the end of the day, they've done studies. We don't actually technically have the attention span of goldfish, but we just have higher standards, and that's why it's so important to create quality content that resonates with your audience, and to know the principles of what that means, and work with a professional. Hint, hint. If you don't know how to do it yourself,
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like even for websites, if you don't have something that'll catch the viewer or like engage them with it almost instantly, and that's called the hero section of a website for those who don't know. It's if you don't have something there to catch them, it's gone. It's just a bounce almost instantly.
yeah.
It's the same thing with a website loading slow. Like, do you really want to be there?
Mm,
No.
no.
And video's the same way. That's why you see hyper processed stuff. Like I'll scroll. My main one is Instagram, but I'll
Yeah.
scroll and I see hyper processed, like to a T,
Yeah.
and it catches me. It's really, yeah.
Yep. Makes sense. Yep.
Well, that's all I had.
All right.
So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome,
You've
Andrew. It
come
was a pleasure being here.